The first thing Elise Wren said to me was not hello. It was not my name. It was not even a question. "Your sister has 4 days," she said, standing in front of the glass wall of a private office high above downtown Chicago. "I can give her 6 months of treatment tonight." The city glittered beneath her like something she owned, by inheritance and disappointment. I stood on the other side of a black marble desk, with my hands curled around the strap of my thrift store bag, still wearing the sweater I had slept in beside Lily's ICU bed. My hair smelled like hospital soap. My shoes were wet from slush. There was a coffee stain on my sleeve from the machine outside the neurology unit. Elise Wren looked like she had never touched a vending machine in her life. Tall, controlled, dark suit cut so sharply it made the room feel underdressed. Black hair pinned low at the nape of her neck. Pale gray eyes that did not move unless they had already decided where to land. Alpha. Not loud about it. That was worse. Some alphas entered a room like thunder. Elise Wren entered like winter, arriving on schedule. Behind her, the Wren Foundation's private medical tower glowed against the night, all glass, chrome, and polished mercy. 3 floors below us, my baby sister was lying under white blankets with a pressure monitor taped to her temple and a machine doing the work her own body had forgotten how to do. 4 days. That was how long the hospital had given us before Lily's experimental neuroregulation program would be discontinued for lack of funding. The official words were more polite. Transition to comfort stabilization. Reassess eligibility. Limited charitable pool exhausted. Polite words were just cruelty with clean shoes. What they meant was simple. My sister was 17. Brilliant. Mouthy. Impossible. And dying in a bed we could no longer afford. I looked at Elise Wren and forced my voice to work. "What do you want from me?" Her eyes did not flicker. "Your name," she said. "6 months. In public, you will be mine." The room went very still. My first instinct was to laugh because the words were too absurd to belong to real life, but nothing about Elise looked absurd. Nothing about the signed folder on her desk looked like a joke. Nothing about the private security guard outside the door, the silent lawyer near the wall, or the hospital bracelet still cutting into my wrist felt imaginary. "You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend?" "No." Her voice was flat enough to bruise. "My fiancée." I stared at her. The lawyer, a sharp black woman in her 50s, with silver-rimmed glasses and a face that looked allergic to nonsense, folded her hands in front of her. Elise continued, "For 6 months, you will live in a Wren property under my protection. You will attend public events when requested. You will not speak to press without counsel present. You will not leave secured locations alone until the risk assessment changes." My throat tightened. Risk assessment? Yes. That sounds like a cage with a nicer vocabulary. It is a boundary with locks you can control. I hated that answer. I hated more that it sounded prepared for exactly the fear in my chest. "And Lily?" I asked. Elise moved 1 page in the folder. "Her account will be cleared before you leave this building. The 6-month neuroregulation program will be paid in full. Private rehabilitation coverage will be guaranteed. If she needs transfer, specialists, mobility support, or extended cognitive therapy, the Wren Foundation will cover all of it." My knees almost gave out. I hated that too. Hope should not feel like someone putting a hand around your throat. The lawyer stepped forward. "Ms. Bellamy, I'm Marin Holt. I represent Ms. Wren personally, not the foundation. The contract includes a medical trust for your sister that cannot be revoked if you end the arrangement early." I blinked at her. "If I leave, Lily still gets treatment?" "Yes," Marin said. "Once funded, the trust is independent." Elise's expression remained unchanged, but something in the room shifted. The cage had a door. That made it harder to hate. It also made it harder to breathe. "Why?" I asked. Elise looked toward the city. For the first time since I entered, she took longer than 1 breath to answer. "Because your sister was not supposed to be denied treatment." The words landed quietly. I looked at her desk, the folder, the Wren Foundation seal embossed in silver on the first page. What does that mean? It means someone inside my family made sure she was. The elevator ride to Elise Wren's office had taken 47 seconds. That was all the time I had to decide. Trap, or the only miracle left. 2 hours earlier, I had been sitting in a hospital chair that had molded itself to the shape of my panic. Lily's room was dim except for the monitors. Her hair, which she had dyed copper 3 weeks before the aneurysm because she said blonde was giving substitute teacher, looked too bright against the pillow. 17. She was supposed to be arguing about college applications and stealing my hoodies, not lying still while doctors used careful voices around me. The bill came at 9:13 p.m. Not paper. People think disaster arrives on paper because movies like documents. Real disaster arrived as a tablet in the hands of a hospital administrator who could not meet my eyes. $382,000 for the deposit, extended trial access, and the first 6 months of therapy. I had $611 in checking. My credit card was maxed. My landlord had texted twice. The online fundraiser had reached $4,908, most of it from strangers who wrote things like, "Praying for your sister," and "Wish I could do more," and "My cousin had a stroke too." I loved every one of them. Their kindness mattered. It still could not buy the treatment. I called distant relatives, old friends, a charity line that played hold music for 32 minutes before telling me the annual emergency pool was already depleted. I called a private lender. Then I hung up when the woman asked if I had property to secure the loan. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Wren Foundation can save Lily Bellamy. Come alone. Private entrance, Tower B. Ask for Elise Wren. I stared at the message until the letters blurred. Everyone in Chicago knew the Wren name. They were old money with new hospitals. Their foundation paid for wings, scholarships, rehabilitation centers, and glossy charity campaigns where beautiful people applauded themselves for being photographed near suffering. Celeste Wren, Elise's mother, chaired the foundation with a smile that made donors open their wallets and employees hold their breath. Elise Wren was different, or that was the rumor. Cold alpha heiress, private, brilliant, ruthless in corporate restructuring, the daughter Celeste brought out when kindness needed teeth. I had seen her once in person across a museum atrium, standing beneath a restored stained glass ceiling while rich people circled her like she was the only fire in winter. She had not smiled. I remembered that because everyone else had been trying so hard. I should have ignored the message. I should have gone back to Lily's room, held her hand, and waited for a kinder miracle. Instead, I looked through the ICU window at my sister's pale face and thought of the first time she had called me Mom by accident after our parents died. She had been 12, embarrassed, furious with grief, and I had pretended not to hear because she looked like one more loss would split her open. I texted back, "I'm coming." A black car met me outside the hospital entrance. No one threatened me. That almost made it worse. The driver opened the door and said, "Ms. Bellamy, Ms. Wren is expecting you." The car smelled like leather, rain, and an alpha who was not present but somehow had shaped the space. My Omega instincts stirred, despite the suppressive patch on my upper arm. I pressed my fingers against it and stared out the window until the city became light and shadow. Now I stood in Elise Wren's office with my sister's life on the desk between us. "In public, I'm yours," I said slowly. "What does that mean in private?" Elise turned back to me. "Separate bedrooms, separate bathrooms, your door locks from your side. I do not have a key." The answer was too fast. "You expected me to ask." "I expected you to be intelligent." That annoyed me enough to steady my voice. "Do you practice making compliments sound like insults?" Marin Holt looked down at her tablet. I suspected she was hiding a smile. Elise did not. In private, Elise continued, you owe me appearances, honesty about security concerns, and cooperation with legal strategy. You do not owe me your body. You do not owe me affection. You do not owe me gratitude. My throat tightened without permission. Gratitude was already there, ugly, heavy, trying to crawl into my mouth. I swallowed it back down. Then why make me live with you? Because after tonight, my mother will assume you know more than you do. About what? Elise's jaw moved once. About the treatment denial pattern tied to the Foundation's neurological programs. I felt cold. Lily wasn't just unlucky. No, the word was clean, brutal. My sister is dying because of a pattern? Elise's gaze did not soften. Maybe she did not know how, but her voice lowered by 1 degree. Your sister is dying because an aneurysm ruptured during soccer practice. She is being denied continued treatment because someone used a funding algorithm to remove her from eligibility after the emergency phase. Funding algorithm. I heard the words and wanted to throw the folder through the glass wall. Why would anyone do that? Because Lily is 17, dependent, low income, and statistically expensive. The world narrowed. I could hear the air vent above us, the faint hum of the city behind glass. My own breathing, wrong and shallow. Marin stepped closer. Ms. Bellamy? No. I lifted a hand. No. Don't make your voice soft. If you make your voice soft, I'm going to scream. Marin stopped. Elise did not come closer. That mattered. I hated that I noticed. You said someone in your family, I said. Yes. Your mother. Elise's silence answered first. Then she said, Celeste controls the Foundation board. I control Wren Medical's restructuring division. We have been at war quietly for 8 months. And I'm the weapon? No. Her answer came too quickly again. I laughed once. It sounded awful. Right. I'm the fake fiancé you suddenly found because you like my personality. I found you because Lily's file should have been protected, and it was altered after I flagged it for review. That shut me up. Elise opened the folder and turned it toward me. Rows of dates, medical codes, internal notes, a red stamp beside Lily's name. Deferred, limited expected return. I gripped the desk. What does that mean? Marin's voice was careful but not soft. It means someone categorized your sister as a poor investment for donor-funded continuation care. For 1 second, I saw red so bright it seemed to burn the page. Lily, who still corrected my grammar from a coma because I could hear her voice in my head. Lily, who wanted to study sports medicine because she said athletes were dramatic and needed supervision. Lily, who had once spent 2 weeks teaching a stray cat to trust the fire escape. Limited expected return. I'll do it, I said. Elise went still. You haven't read the contract. I'll read it in the car. You are not signing under shock. I stared at her. Are you serious? Yes. My sister has 4 days. And you have until morning to sign. No, I grabbed the pen from the desk. I have until now. Elise's eyes sharpened. Nora. It was the first time she had said my name. Not Omega. Not Ms. Bellamy. Nora. It landed in a place I did not want her voice to reach. I am not your victim, I said. I know what I'm choosing. You know Lily is dying. That is not the same thing. My hand shook around the pen. I hated her in that moment. Not because she was wrong, because she was not. If I wait until morning, I said, will the money still go tonight? Elise turned to Marin. Marin nodded once. The trust can be funded immediately with a preliminary protection agreement. The engagement contract can wait until noon. I looked between them. You would pay before I sign? Elise picked up her phone. I already did. My breath stopped. What? She looked at the screen. The hospital should receive confirmation in less than 1 minute. As if she had summoned it, my phone rang. Chicago Memorial Neurology. My hands fumbled so badly I almost dropped it. Hello? Nora? Dr. Asha Patel's voice sounded strained with surprise. The account office just received payment confirmation for Lily's extended program, full deposit and 6 months of care. We're preparing her for the first neuroregulation treatment tonight. I closed my eyes. The world tipped. I did not fall. Barely. She gets to stay in the program? I whispered. Yes. Nora, I don't know how. Thank you. My voice broke on the last word. I ended the call before I could make a sound that belonged on the floor. The office blurred. Lily gets treatment. Lily gets treatment. Lily gets treatment. When my vision cleared, Elise Wren was still standing behind the desk, untouched by her own miracle. Why? I asked. If you already paid, why do you still need me? Her expression changed then, not softer. More honest, maybe, because now they know I chose you, she said, which means tonight, Nora, you became a target. At 12:06 a.m., I went back to Lily's room. Elise came with me, not inside at first. She stopped outside the ICU doors like an expensive shadow and said, "I'll wait here." I should have been relieved. Instead, I looked at her. You're not coming in? Not unless you want me to. The sentence was simple. It still made something in my chest ache. The last alpha I dated, a sculptor named Arden with hands like poetry and loyalty like smoke, had entered every space as if my permission was implied by affection. My apartment, my schedule, my decisions, my body. He had never done anything dramatic enough for people to call cruel. He had simply pressed himself into all the soft places until there was no room left to breathe. Elise Wren stood outside the ICU and waited to be invited. It confused me more than anything else she had done. Power usually entered first and apologized later. Elise stayed at the door. I don't know what I want, I said. Then I'll wait. I nodded once and went inside alone. Behind me, she did not move. I heard that stillness more clearly than footsteps. Lily looked the same. Machines, tubes, the soft mechanical rhythm of not losing her yet. But everything was different, because the impossible number had vanished. A nurse was already changing labels on her chart. Dr. Patel came in 10 minutes later with a treatment schedule, and hope so carefully restrained it made my knees weak. It's not a guarantee, she told me. I know, but it gives her a real chance. A real chance. I sat by Lily's bed and pressed my forehead to her hand. You hear that, Bug? I whispered. You're not allowed to make me do all your college essays now. You have to come back and suffer through them yourself. Her fingers did not move. I pretended they might. When I came out 40 minutes later, Elise was still there. Same posture, same dark coat, hands clasped in front of her. Nurses had started pretending not to look at her. I wiped my face with my sleeve and hated that she saw. She looks small, I said. Elise nodded. She hates looking small. What does she prefer? Terrifying. Then I hope she becomes terrifying again soon. I laughed before I could stop myself. Elise looked almost startled by the sound, as if laughter near her required documentation. It was not a pretty laugh. It had too much grief in it. But Elise looked at me like it was evidence of something worth preserving. Marin met us in a private waiting room with the preliminary agreement. It was 6 pages, not 60. That was the first mercy Marin Holt had not announced. I read every word. Medical trust funded irrevocably. No physical obligation. No romantic obligation. Separate living quarters. Security protocols. Public engagement duration, 6 months. Exit rights. Either party may terminate private cohabitation with 24 hours notice. Public cover may continue through separate housing if needed for safety. I looked up. You really built a door into this. Elise stood near the window, watching the hospital hallway through the glass. Yes. Why? Because if you stay, I want it to be because every day you choose not to leave. My mouth went dry. 6 months suddenly felt less like a sentence, more like a question that would be asked every morning. Marin's pen clicked. Elise, she said, not looking up. You are saying quiet parts again. Elise said nothing. I signed the preliminary agreement at 1:14 a.m. My signature looked smaller than hers. That annoyed me enough to sign the second page harder. At 1:26 a.m., the hospital confirmed Lily's treatment schedule. At 1:41 a.m., the first photo leaked. It showed Elise standing outside the ICU, with me beside her, my face pale, her coat angled around us both because she had stepped between me and a photographer I had not noticed. The caption appeared online before we reached the elevator. Wren Heiress secretly engaged to Omega art student as foundation scandal deepens. My phone exploded. The first text was from my landlord. Is that you? The second was from a classmate I had not spoken to since midterms. Girl? The third was from an unknown number. Tell Elise Wren to stop digging, or your sister won't be the only one in a hospital bed. Elise took my phone when my hand went numb. Not snatched. Held out her palm and waited. I gave it to her because if I looked at the message again, I might break in a way that could not be repaired with money. Her face changed as she read it. Not visibly to most people. Maybe. But I saw the temperature drop. Marin, she said. Marin took the phone, read it, and muttered, that was fast. Elise turned to me. You're coming home with me tonight. Home? My residence. No. Nora. No. I wrapped both arms around myself. You do not get to say something terrifying and then move me like luggage. For the first time, irritation flashed in her eyes. Good. I preferred it to controlled mercy. You just received a threat connected to my family. And my sister is still here. Your sister will have security. She needs me. She needs you alive. The words hit too hard because they sounded like something I would say about Lily. I looked through the glass toward the ICU doors. Elise lowered her voice. You can see her in the morning. I'll bring you myself. Tonight we need to secure you before Celeste decides how bold she wants to be. Your mother sent that? I don't know. Do you think she did? Elise did not answer. That was answer enough. At 2:20 a.m., I left the hospital in Elise Wren's car. I had one bag. Lily had a real chance. And somewhere in Chicago, powerful people had learned my name. Elise's residence was not a penthouse. I had expected that. Glass, skyline, cold marble, expensive loneliness. Instead, the car pulled through an iron gate into a brick townhouse on a quiet street in Lincoln Park. Ivy crawled along one side despite winter's best efforts. Warm light glowed behind tall windows. There were security cameras, yes, and a guard at the gate, but the house itself looked less like a fortress than a secret someone had kept carefully. Inside, it smelled like cedar, paper, and coffee. Not sterile. Not decorative. Lived in, though with the kind of restraint that suggested the furniture had been chosen by someone who feared clutter was a moral weakness. This is yours? I asked. Yes. It has books. Elise glanced at me. Was that in doubt? I thought rich people bought books by color. Marin, walking behind us, said, Some do. Elise alphabetizes trauma. Elise ignored her. I almost smiled. The guest suite was on the second floor, at the end of a quiet hallway. Elise opened the door. Then she stepped back before I entered. A bed with white sheets, a small sitting area, a desk under the window, a bathroom with a clawfoot tub, a closet already stocked with clothes in my size. My stomach clenched. You bought clothes. Marin bought clothes, Elise said. Marin lifted a hand. I have better taste and fewer emotional complications. I walked to the closet. Sweaters, jeans, soft shirts, pajamas, a navy coat, Sneakers, boots, nothing too revealing, nothing that looked like a costume. Still, you planned this. Elise did not deny it. I prepared for the possibility you would need somewhere safe. Before I agreed, yes, that's creepy. Yes, Marin said. Elise looked at her. Marin shrugged. It is. I stared at them both. For some reason, that helped. Elise crossed the room only as far as the desk and placed a key on top of it. This locks your door from the inside. Security cannot override it unless there is a fire alarm. I cannot override it at all. I picked it up. It was real. Heavy brass. Not a symbolic keycard that could be canceled by someone downstairs. A small, ugly part of me wanted to cry over a key. Why are you doing this? I asked. You keep asking that. You keep not answering. Elise looked at me for a long moment. Then she said, because my family taught me that protection and control were the same thing. I am trying to learn the difference before I become my mother. The answer was too honest. I did not know what to do with it, so I looked away. Marin set a burner phone on the desk. For secure calls, Lily's hospital line is programmed in. Mine too. Elise's. Dr. Patel. Security lead. If you need anything, call me before you decide to throw furniture. I don't throw furniture, Elise said. You looked at my office chair as if you were evaluating its weight. I opened my mouth. Closed it. Marin smiled. Excellent. Good night. When she left, Elise remained in the doorway. Not inside. Not outside. Waiting. I hated the feeling that my choices were being handed back to me faster than I could recognize them. What? I asked. You should sleep. You should stop telling me what to do. Yes. Neither of us moved. Then she said, I'm sorry. The words were so unexpected I stared. For what? For the situation requiring you to trust someone you have no reason to trust. I gripped the key. I don't trust you. I know. But you paid for Lily. Yes. And you might be using me. Yes. My head snapped up. Elise's expression did not change. I might be, she said. Even with good intentions, even with safeguards, power makes use of people very easy to rename. If I do that, tell Marin. She will be insufferable and correct. I stared at her. You are very strange. I've heard. From Marin? Frequently. I looked down at the key again. Good night, Elise. Something moved across her face when I said her name. Not much. Enough. Good night, Nora. She closed the door. I locked it. The click was small. It sounded like permission. Then I sat on the edge of the bed in a room too beautiful for the life I had yesterday, and cried so quietly even I barely heard it. Morning arrived with snowlight and panic. For 3 seconds I did not know where I was. Then memory returned all at once. Lily, the money, the contract, Elise, the threat. I grabbed the secure phone and called the ICU. Dr. Patel answered on the second ring. She's stable, she said before I could ask. First treatment went as expected. No major complications overnight. I pressed a hand to my mouth. Can I see her? Of course. Elise drove me herself. No driver, no guards in the car. Just her in a black coat, hands steady on the wheel, eyes fixed on the road like traffic had personally offended her. You drive? I asked. Yes. I thought heiresses were decorative in the back seat. Only on Thursdays. I looked at her. She kept her face completely still. It took me a second to realize she had made a joke. A tiny, dry, barely alive joke. A joke with no pulse, but technically living. I laughed. She glanced at me once, and then back at the road. Don't look proud, I said. I am not. You are internally smug. That seems difficult to prove. The laugh faded, but it left the car warmer. At the hospital, Lily's room was guarded by a woman named Jo, with a shaved head and a stare that could stop elevators. Joe nodded to Elise, then to me. "No one enters without Ms. Bellamy's permission," Joe said. I looked at Elise. She was reading a message on her phone and did not look up. "Your sister," she said. "Your room." I hated how much that sentence mattered. I hated more that it felt like safety. Lily looked no different, except now there was a new machine beside the bed with a green light pulsing softly. Her skin had more color. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe Hope was a liar with good lighting. I sat beside her and told her everything. Not all the details. Enough. "I signed something," I whispered. "Before you yell at me, which you absolutely will when you wake up, please note that I read it first. Marin seems terrifying in a helpful way. Elise is... I don't know what Elise is yet." The monitor beeped. I know. Rich, tall, emotionally constipated. Behind me, someone coughed. I turned. Elise stood in the hallway outside the open door, one shoulder against the frame, pretending she had not heard. I felt my face heat. "You were supposed to wait outside." "I am outside." "You heard me." "Yes." Lily's monitor beeped again. I pointed at her. "Don't encourage her." Elise's mouth did something almost like a smile. That was when Celeste Wren arrived. I had seen her in magazines. Everyone had. Celeste Wren, chairwoman of the Wren Foundation. Philanthropist, widow, civic icon. The kind of woman who could turn cruelty into a luncheon if the flowers were expensive enough. In person, she was smaller than I expected and far more dangerous. White blonde hair, cream coat, diamond earrings, a smile warm enough to burn skin off bone. "Elise," she said. The hallway changed around her. Nurses looked down. Joe straightened. Even the air seemed to apply for permission. Elise did not move. "Mother." Celeste's eyes slid to me. "Nora Bellamy," she said, like she had purchased the syllables wholesale. I stepped out of Lily's room and pulled the door mostly closed behind me. Elise noticed. Celeste did too. "How brave," Celeste said. My hands curled. Elise's voice cooled. "Why are you here?" "To meet the young woman my daughter has apparently decided to marry in the middle of a foundation crisis." "It isn't apparent," Elise said. "It's public record as of this morning." My stomach dropped. "What?" Elise looked at me. "Marin filed the engagement notice to control the leak." "You could have told me." "I was going to. When, after the wedding cake..." Celeste laughed softly. "There she is," she said. "A little temper. How charming." Elise stepped forward half an inch. "Not between us." Beside me. I noticed the difference. Celeste noticed me noticing. "Nora," she said, softening her voice into something poisonous. "You must be very overwhelmed. My daughter has always had a flair for dramatic rescues. It comes from her father's side. My sister's treatment was denied." Celeste's smile did not move. "Medical eligibility is complicated." "Not that complicated." Elise's eyes flicked toward me. Celeste tilted her head. "You think so?" "I think a 17-year-old in a coma should not be labeled a poor investment." The hallway went silent. Celeste's smile finally thinned. Elise said, "Careful." I did not know if she meant me or her mother. Celeste looked at Elise. "You gave her documents." She saw Lily's file. How unfortunate. That was the moment I understood. Not suspected. Understood. This woman had read my sister's name next to those words and felt inconvenience, not horror. My fear burned into something cleaner. "I'm going back to Lily," I said. Celeste watched me. "Of course. Family first." I stopped. "So you do understand the concept." Elise made a small sound. Celeste's eyes sharpened, but I did not wait to enjoy it. I went back into Lily's room and shut the door. My hands shook afterward. Not from regret, from the delayed realization that I had just insulted Celeste Wren in a neurology hallway while wearing borrowed jeans. Lily would have been proud. The next 2 weeks were a performance. For the world, I was Nora Bellamy, mysterious Omega art student, sudden fiancée of Elise Wren. Photographers waited outside the townhouse. Commentators called me everything from Cinderella to opportunist to a public relations distraction. Someone found my school portfolio and posted my charcoal portraits online with captions about social climbing grief aesthetics. Lily's classmates sent supportive videos. Some made me cry. One made me laugh so hard I had to sit down because they all wore team jerseys and shouted, "Wake up, Lily! Your sister got rich and weird." Lily did not wake. Not yet. But her scans improved. Small things. Tiny movements in the right direction. Enough for Dr. Patel's cautious voice to sound less like a hallway and more like a door. Inside Elise's townhouse, my life became strange. Safe, mostly. Structured. Elise ate breakfast at exactly 6:30, unless a crisis moved it to 6:15, which she treated like moral decay. She drank black coffee and read printed reports because she disliked being summoned by screens before caffeine. She left for Wren Medical by 7 and returned at hours that made me suspect she was not fully human. She always knocked before entering my room. Always, even when the door was open. I hated how quickly I began listening for it. I hated how disappointed I felt on nights she did not pass by. Marin visited daily with documents and sarcasm. She taught me how to answer public questions without answering them. She also taught me how to recognize when rich people were lying with nouns instead of verbs. "Elise does that too," I said once. Marin looked at Elise across the dining table. "She used to. Now she mostly broods in full sentences." Elise did not look up from her file. "I am present." "Physically, yes." I learned the townhouse library had a fireplace Elise never used because she thought fire was inefficiently dramatic. I used it every night. The first time she found me there sketching Lily from memory, she stood in the doorway for almost a full minute. "Is it bad?" I asked without looking up. "No." "Then why are you standing like a ghost with money?" I didn't want to interrupt. I looked up. She was still in her work clothes, coat over one arm, hair slightly loose from its pin. The day had left faint shadows beneath her eyes. For the first time, she looked less like winter and more like someone who had been cold too long. I wanted to know who had left her that way. That was dangerous. So I looked back at my sketch. "You can come in," I said. She did. Not too close. She sat in the armchair across from me and looked at the drawing. "You love her fiercely," she said. "She's all I have." Elise's gaze moved from the paper to me. "You are not all she has." My pencil stilled. "I mean," she said, as if correcting herself before the words could become too much, "there are people helping now." I looked back down. "That's not the same." "No," she said. "It isn't." We sat in silence until the fire cracked. Then I asked, "Do you have siblings?" "No." "Lucky." Her mouth curved faintly. "My mother would disagree. She considers only children inefficient for dynastic planning." I snorted. Elise looked surprised. "What?" "Nothing," she said. "You're doing the face again." "What face?" "The one where a human reaction happened near you and you need legal review." She blinked. Then, slowly, she smiled. It was small, real, gone almost immediately. I looked back at my sketch too fast. Dangerous, I thought. Not because she was alpha, because she was kind in ways that arrived disguised as structure. The first gala came on day 17. I wore a dark green dress Marin chose because she said it made me look less like prey and more like a witness. Elise wore black, of course. I wondered if color had personally offended her in childhood. The event was a foundation donor dinner at the Art Institute. Gold light, old money, people pretending medical access was a virtue they could purchase by the plate. My job was simple: stand beside Elise, Smile rarely. Say nothing without Marin's signal. Do not throw wine at Celeste. Marin was very firm about the last one. The room went quiet when we entered. Elise offered me her arm. Not took my hand, not placed a palm on my back. Offered. I slid my hand into the crook of her elbow. Her scent was faint beneath expensive wool and restraint. Cedar. Smoke. Something winter-sharp that made my Omega instincts pay attention despite the suppressive patch at my shoulder. She noticed the smallest change in my breathing. Of course she did. "Are you all right?" she murmured. "Yes." "You're lying. Politely. That does not improve the lie." A photographer lifted a camera. Elise angled her body half a step, blocking most of me without making it obvious. The gesture made my chest hurt. Celeste approached with 3 donors and a smile made of knives. "There they are," she said. "The couple everyone is discussing." Elise's arm remained steady beneath my hand. "Mother." Celeste looked at me. "Nora, dear, that color is lovely. Elise chose it?" "Marin did." Marin always did have a taste for defensive styling. Marin, appearing from nowhere, said, "Thank you." I almost laughed. Celeste's eyes cooled. One donor, a silver-haired man with a rose pin, smiled at me. "Ms. Bellamy, how romantic, meeting through charity work." I looked at Elise. Marin's eyebrow twitched once. Permission? Warning? Hard to tell. I said, "I met Elise because my sister was denied treatment." The donor stopped smiling. Elise's arm went very still. Celeste's voice stayed pleasant. "Nora is very passionate about her family." "Yes," I said. "It keeps me from confusing paperwork with mercy." A pause. Then, Elise said, "Excuse us." She guided me away before Celeste decided murder could be tax-deductible. In a side gallery, surrounded by paintings older than anyone's excuses, Elise released my arm and faced me. "What was that?" "Too much?" "Yes." I swallowed. Her jaw tightened. Then she said, "Also accurate." I stared. "You're not angry?" "I'm terrified." That was worse. That was worse. "Elise, this room is full of people who fund my mother's control. They will punish anything that threatens their version of themselves as benevolent. Then why bring me? Because hiding you makes you easier to erase." The answer stole my breath. Her voice lowered. "But exposure has costs. I need you to understand them before you decide how sharp you want to be." "I'm already paying costs." "I know." "No." I said, "You know the file. You know the amount. You know the threat. You don't know what it feels like to stand beside Lily's bed and wonder whether your dignity is worth less than one more treatment day." Elise flinched. It was tiny. It was there. "I'm sorry," she said. I looked away. The gallery was quiet around us, painted saints and storms watching from gilded frames. "I don't want to be your quiet fiancé," I said. "I don't want you quiet." "Then what do you want?" Her answer came too softly. "I want you alive long enough to choose your own volume." Something inside me went still. No one had ever said anything like that to me. No one had ever made protection sound like patience. Before I could answer, my phone rang. "Dr. Patel." My hands turned cold. Elise saw the screen and stepped back, giving me space. I answered. "Nora," Dr. Patel said, and I heard something in her voice I had been afraid to hope for. Lily opened her eyes. The museum disappeared. "She what?" "She isn't fully responsive yet, but she opened her eyes during stimulation. She tracked movement. "Nora, it's early, but this is very good." I covered my mouth. Elise was watching me like she had forgotten anyone else existed. "She opened her eyes," I whispered. For 1 second, the cold alpha heiress looked relieved enough to be human. Then the side gallery doors opened. Celeste stood there. She had heard. Her smile was soft. Too soft. "How wonderful," she said. then perhaps we should all be more careful about what comes next. The second threat arrived in a white envelope. Not to Elise. To me, it was slipped under the townhouse gate 3 nights after the gala, addressed in block letters to Nora Bellamy. Inside was a photograph of Lily's hospital room taken through the glass. On the back, one sentence. Engagements can end, machines can fail. I do not remember dropping the photograph. I remember Elise picking it up with a face so cold I understood why people feared her. I remember Joe moving to the door. I remember Marin saying, "No one leaves alone." I remember my own voice, thin and strange. "I want to see Lily." Elise looked at me. "Now. It's midnight. I don't care." Then, we go now. No argument, no lecture, no careful explanation of security concerns. She went to get her coat. That was the night everything changed between us. Not loudly. Not all at once. Just enough that the space between us stopped feeling empty. At the hospital, Lily was awake. Not fully, not in the bright dramatic way I had imagined. Her eyes opened and closed slowly. Her mouth could not form words around the tube yet. Her right hand moved if I asked 3 times, and cried before the third. But she was there. My baby sister was in there. I sat beside her and held the photograph out of her sight. "Elise is here," I told her, because Lily's eyes had moved toward the hallway. "Don't judge me. It's complicated." A faint movement at Lily's mouth. Not a smile. Maybe. Elise entered only when I crooked my finger. She stood at the foot of the bed with a seriousness so complete it almost looked like prayer. "This is Lily," I said. Elise looked at my sister. "Hello, Lily. I'm Elise Wren." Lily blinked slowly. I leaned closer. Yes, she always sounds like that. The monitor beeped faster. Elise looked at me. Like what? Like a contract learned to speak. For half a second, Lily's eyes crinkled. I made a sound somewhere between laugh and sob. Elise froze as if Lily had handed her a medal. Elise went very still. "She understood," I whispered. Dr. Patel later said maybe reflex, maybe partial comprehension, maybe yes. I took maybe and held it like treasure. When you have been starving, even maybe tastes like bread. At 2 a.m., after Lily fell asleep again, I found Elise in the family waiting room. She was alone by the vending machines, staring at a cup of coffee she had not opened. "You should go home," I said. "So should you." "I'm not leaving her." "I know." She handed me the cup. I took it. "Is this terrible?" "Yes." "Good. I only trust hospital coffee that tastes like it has suffered." Elise looked at me. Then the corner of her mouth moved. I sat beside her. For a while, neither of us spoke. The waiting room television played muted weather reports. Snow again by morning. Chicago looked beautiful when you did not have to survive it. Finally, I said, "I'm scared all the time." Elise did not offer comfort fast enough to make it false. "Yes. That's your whole response?" "Yes." I laughed weakly. Then I started crying. I hated it. I turned away, but Elise did not let the moment become performance. She did not touch me. She did not say hush. She did not tell me I was strong. She just sat beside me while I broke quietly into hospital coffee. After a while, she said, "When my father died, my mother gave me 2 hours before the board arrived." I wiped my face. "What?" I was 19. He collapsed in his office, a cardiac event. By noon, Celeste had called an emergency governance meeting. By 2, she had me in a black dress, standing beside her while she told donors the Wren family remained stable. Her voice was flat. That made it worse. "I didn't cry until 3 weeks later," she said. "In an elevator between floors 17 and 18. It got stuck for 4 minutes. I think my body believed it was finally alone." I looked at her. Elise stared at the vending machine. "My mother called grief inefficient. I believed her for a very long time. My chest hurt. Elise. She looked at me then. Not cold, not soft either. Unarmored in a way that felt accidental. I don't know how to do this gently, she said. I know how to plan, protect, purchase, threaten, expose, and endure. I am trying to learn the rest before I damage you with the tools I have. I should have said something careful. I did not. I reached across the space between us and took her hand. Her fingers went still. Then, slowly, she turned her palm beneath mine and held on. No cameras, no contract, no Celeste, no public engagement. Just a hospital waiting room, terrible coffee, and the cold alpha heiress holding my hand like she did not know she was allowed to need it too. The evidence came from a painting. That sounds impossible. It was not. Before everything, before Lily's aneurysm, before Elise Wren and contracts and public lies, I studied art restoration at the Chicago Conservation Institute. I worked nights cleaning old varnish from donated canvases and days learning how rich families hid secrets in objects they assumed poor people only dusted. The Wren Foundation had a private archive. Of course it did. 3 weeks after Lily opened her eyes, Elise brought me there because I had demanded to be useful, and Marin had told her, "Let the woman do what she's trained to do before she starts biting people." The archive sat beneath the original Wren estate in Lake Forest, sealed behind climate-controlled doors and family portraits where every ancestor looked like they had personally invented judgment. Celeste's people had already reviewed the financial records. Elise's people had reviewed the digital files. No one had reviewed the commemorative donor ledgers. People with power rarely believe decorative history can testify. I did. The first ledger was from the Foundation's neurological access expansion, 5 years old, leather-bound, hand-signed by donors and board members, at a gala Elise had been too young to control and too trained to question. Celeste's signature appeared on page 1. Beautiful, controlled, uselessly elegant. I stared at it for a long time. Elise stood beside me but did not crowd. "What do you see?" she asked. "Vanity. That is not a legal category. It should be." Marin said from the next table, "I'll draft a memo." I leaned closer with a magnifying lens. The ink on Celeste's signature had pooled strangely in 2 places. Not enough for a casual observer. Enough for someone who spent hours studying pressure, movement, and hesitation. I turned 3 pages. A second signature. Dr. Wallace Reed, former medical director. Same pooling, same angle, same unnatural lift at the end. "Elise," I said. She moved instantly. Not touching me. Beside me. These signatures were traced. Marin stood. I kept going, heart accelerating. Not copied digitally, hand-traced from originals. Someone used a pressure guide or light table. See the tremor here? Real signatures breathe. These don't. Elise's face went white in a way I had never seen. Marin leaned over the page. "Can you prove it?" "Yes." "With imaging and comparison samples." Elise stared at the ledger. "What did they approve?" I asked. Marin turned the page. There it was. A funding reallocation authorization, transferring restricted neurological access funds into a private donor-matched investment vehicle for future expansion. Future expansion. Another phrase that smelled like rot. Restricted funds meant money donated for patients like Lily had been moved away from them. Not lost, not unavailable. Moved. Celeste had not merely allowed an algorithm to deny poor patients. She had fed the machine, then hidden the food. Elise walked away from the table. Not far. Just to the end of the room, where she gripped the back of a chair hard enough that her knuckles whitened. I followed. "Elise, my father signed this." "No," I said. "His name was used." She looked at me. Something in her eyes was breaking carefully, like even collapse had to follow family protocol. He was dead by then, she said. The room went quiet. Marin swore softly. I looked back at the ledger. 5 years old. 2 months after Alexander Wren died. Celeste had forged a dead man's approval to move patient funds. Elise looked like the floor had vanished beneath her, and she was too disciplined to fall. I touched her sleeve. Only her sleeve. Elise. She inhaled once. Then she looked at me, and the cold returned to her face. Not the old cold. This one had purpose. Image every page, she said. Marin, call Simone Price and request emergency independent audit authorization. Nora, can you prepare a preliminary restoration authenticity statement? Yes. My voice did not shake. For the first time since this began, I felt something other than trapped. I felt armed. Not by Elise. By the truth. Celeste Wren hosted the Winter Mercy Gala every February. Yes, that was the real name. Rich people named events like they were daring God to object. The gala raised money for neurological access programs. It also celebrated the people who decided who was worthy of receiving them. It was held in the Wren Conservatory, a glass-domed botanical hall filled with white orchids, gold chairs, champagne towers, and enough hypocrisy to raise the temperature by 3 degrees. This year, Elise was expected to attend with her fiancé. Me. Celeste fought the audit for 11 days. Then, she stopped fighting too visibly. Marin said that meant she was preparing to kill something quietly. Lily had improved enough to mouth 3 words through dry lips when I told her about the gala. Wear red, scare. I wore red. Not bright. Deep garnet. The color of old velvet curtains and warnings. Elise saw me at the bottom of the townhouse stairs and forgot how to speak. I counted. 1 second. 2. 3. Legal review face, I said. She blinked. You look... She stopped. Careful. Formidable. I smiled. Good. She offered her arm. I took it. This time, it did not feel like a performance. At the gala, Celeste wore silver. Of course she did. She greeted us beneath the conservatory dome with cameras flashing around her. My darling Elise, she said, kissing the air beside her daughter's cheek. And Nora, how lovely. Red is a bold choice for mercy. It was Lily's idea. Celeste's smile flickered. Good. The first hour was unbearable. Donors asked about Lily with pity they expected me to appreciate. Reporters shouted questions about the engagement. One woman told me I was so brave to stand beside the family helping my sister, and I imagined Lily waking up fully just to throw a bread roll at her. Elise never left my side. Not possessively. Steadily. Marin moved through the room like a legal shark in pearls. At 9 p.m., Celeste took the stage. Behind her, a massive screen displayed smiling patient photos, including 3 children whose funding had been delayed by the very system she was praising. Lily was not there. Elise had made sure of that. Celeste began her speech with gratitude. They always do. Mercy, she said, is not merely the act of giving. It is the discipline of stewarding resources wisely so care can endure beyond a single crisis. Elise's hand tightened once at her side. I stood beside her. Cameras turned toward us. Celeste smiled out at the room. Tonight, as our family expands in beautiful and unexpected ways, we are reminded that the Wren Foundation has always served as a bridge between need and hope. My stomach turned. Elise stepped forward. The room noticed. Celeste did too. Elise? Her voice remained warm. Did you want to join me? Yes, Elise said. She walked onto the stage. Marin appeared beside me. Breathe. I am. Like someone planning arson. Is that legally relevant? Depends what burns. Elise reached the podium. Celeste's smile had become fixed. Elise looked at the donors, the cameras, the board members, the people who had paid thousands of dollars to feel close to generosity. "My mother is right about one thing," Elise said. "Mercy requires discipline." The room quieted. It requires the discipline to tell the truth when lies are more profitable. It requires the discipline to admit when stewardship becomes theft dressed in better tailoring. A murmur moved through the hall. Celeste went still. Elise clicked a remote. The screen changed. No patient photos now. Ledger pages. Signatures enlarged. Dates circled. Donor fund transfers. Marin whispered, "Oh, she went full dramatic." I whispered back, "I thought fire was inefficient." Elise makes exceptions for emotional arson. On stage, Elise's voice remained calm. "These documents show that restricted neurological access funds were diverted from patient care into private investment vehicles over 5 years. They also show forged approvals, including the signature of my late father after his death." Gasps. A camera flash. Celeste turned toward Elise slowly. "Elise," she said, and the name sounded like a blade wrapped in silk. "This is not the time." "No," Elise said. "This is exactly the time. The time was 5 years ago. The time was every day a patient was denied treatment while money meant for them earned interest elsewhere. The time was when Lily Bellamy's file was stamped deferred because helping her was considered a poor return." Every camera swung toward me. My lungs froze. Elise did not look at me. She had promised not to make me a spectacle without warning. Instead, she said, "Nora Bellamy identified the forged signatures because she was trained to see what powerful people assumed no one would examine. She will speak only if she chooses." The room shifted. Choice. Even here. Even now. Elise gave it back in front of everyone. Celeste's eyes found mine. For 1 second, fear tried to put me back in the hospital chair, small and desperate and grateful for crumbs. Then I thought of Lily. Wear red. Scare. I walked onto the stage. Elise moved aside. Not behind me. Not in front of me. Beside me. I stood at the microphone. My hands shook, so I placed them flat on the podium. "My sister is not a poor return," I said. The room went silent enough to hear the fountain behind the orchids. "She is 17. She likes soccer, bad horror movies, and correcting my pronunciation when I'm tired. She wants to become a physical therapist because she says athletes are dramatic and need emotional supervision. She is not a line item. She is not an eligibility burden. She is not a tragedy for your Gala video." My voice steadied. "She is one of the people this foundation was built to help. If money given in the name of patients like her was moved somewhere else, then that is not stewardship. It is stealing from the sick and calling it strategy." Marin later told me 3 attorneys in the room visibly aged. Good. Celeste left before the speech ended. She did not get far. Simone Price, the independent auditor Marin had called, was waiting with state investigators near the service entrance. Rich people always assume consequences will use the front door. They rarely watch the kitchen. The gala ended in chaos. Donors shouting, reporters rushing the stage, board members pretending their phones contained emergency messages. Celeste's face blank and white as she was escorted out by officials who did not care how much she had donated to the arts. Elise remained beside me until Marin cleared a path. Only when we reached the side corridor did she stop. "Are you all right?" I looked at her. The garnet dress felt too tight. My feet hurt. My phone was probably detonating in Marin's bag. Lily was still in a hospital bed. Celeste Wren would not vanish quietly. Tomorrow would be worse. But for the first time in weeks, the fear in my chest had room around it. "Yes," I said. "I think I am." Elise nodded once. Then her face changed. "Pain. Not physical. You should know," she said. "The engagement can end now." My heart stopped in a very stupid way. "What?" "The public purpose is complete. Your sister's trust is protected. The audit is independent. You no longer need to remain tied to me for safety if you don't want to." I stared at her. Are you breaking up with me in a service hallway? Her eyes widened slightly. No. Because we are fake engaged. Yes. So there is technically nothing to break. Correct. And yet you look like a woman personally folding her own heart into a legal envelope. Marin, from 10 feet away, said, That is accurate. Elise closed her eyes. I almost laughed. I almost cried. Instead, I stepped closer. Elise. She opened her eyes. What if I don't want it to end tonight? Her stillness was complete. Not cold. Afraid. Nora, you have been under pressure since the moment we met. I know. You may feel gratitude. I am grateful. I also regularly want to hit you with a folder. That seems balanced. I like you, I said. The words came out simple. Too simple for what they did to her face. She looked as if no one had ever handed her something soft without a hidden blade. I don't know what this is, I continued. I don't know what happens after 6 months. I don't know how to be with someone whose family nearly destroyed mine. I don't know how to love anything right now without checking whether it can survive hospital lighting. Her breath caught. But I know I don't want to walk away tonight because the contract says I can. Elise did not move. Say something, I whispered. I am trying not to say too much. Try less. Her mouth trembled. Barely. I want you to stay, she said, not because of the contract, not because of Lily, not because of danger. I want you in my house, in my mornings, in the library using my fireplace inefficiently. I want to hear you insult my emotional vocabulary. I want to watch Lily wake up fully and judge me in person. I want you safe, but not silent. Close, but not trapped. I want more than I have any right to ask for. The service hallway blurred. Elise! I know. No, you don't. That was very good. She blinked. I laughed, and the laugh broke into tears halfway through. This time, when she lifted her hand, she stopped before touching my face. May I? I nodded. Her fingers touched my cheek like permission had weight. Not a kiss. Not yet. Just a touch. It was enough to make me understand that the most dangerous thing about Elise Wren had never been her power. It was how carefully she could hold back all of it for me. Lily woke up fully on a Tuesday. She opened her eyes at 10:33 a.m., looked at me, looked at Elise standing behind my chair with a paper cup of coffee, and mouthed around the last of the tube irritation, tall. I burst into tears. Lily frowned. Don't, she rasped. Don't what? Ugly cry? Bad brand. Elise made a sound that might have been pain or laughter. I leaned over the bed and held Lily as carefully as the wires allowed. You're alive, I sobbed. Obviously. Her voice was scratchy and weak. Too nosy to die. Dr. Patel cried in the hallway and denied it. Lily's recovery was not a montage. It was hard, messy, slow. She had headaches that made her shake. She forgot words and hated it. She slept for hours after sitting upright for 15 minutes. She called physical therapy state-sanctioned bullying and made her therapist laugh so hard he had to leave the room. But she came back. Every day, another inch. Elise visited more than she admitted she wanted to. At first, she stood by the door. Then Lily demanded she sit, because looming is rude unless you're a haunted painting. Elise sat. Lily asked her blunt questions no journalist had managed to ask. Do you actually love my sister, or is this a tax thing? I choked on water. Elise, to her credit, answered. I care for your sister very much. The rest is not mine to define alone. Lily squinted. Politician answer. Yes. Do better next time. I will. Lily looked at me. She's teachable. I covered my face. Over the next month, Celeste Wren became a scandal with hair. Investigators found diverted funds, forged approvals, donor misrepresentations, and a private chain of emails so cruel even commentators ran out of euphemisms. The foundation board removed her. Wren Medical separated from the foundation entirely. Elise became interim chair of a restructured patient trust because apparently the universe enjoyed irony. Marin said it was accountability. Lily said it was Nepo baby community service. Elise accepted both descriptions with equal suffering. The 6-month mark arrived in spring. 6 months. The number had once sounded like a price. Now it sounded like a door we had reached together. I knew because Marin placed the original contract on the dining table between Elise and me at breakfast, then set a lighter beside it. "No," Elise said. Marin looked offended. "I was being symbolic. You were inviting arson." I contain multitudes. I stared at the contract. 6 months. In that time, Lily had gone from machines to sarcastic wheelchair races. Celeste had gone from queen of charity to defendant. Elise's townhouse had become the place where my sketchbooks multiplied on the library table, and my favorite mug appeared in the cabinet without discussion. My clothes hung in the guest suite closet, but I had stopped calling it a guest suite. Elise sat across from me, perfectly still. Too still. "You think I'm leaving?" I said. Her eyes lifted. "You can." "That's not what I asked." "No," she said. "I don't think you are leaving. I am afraid to hope you aren't." Marin's face softened, which was alarming. I picked up the contract. Elise's jaw tightened. I held it over the table. "Do you want the legal answer or the real one?" "The real one," Elise said. I tore the contract in half. Marin gasped. That was a copy, but still, beautiful. Elise did not blink. I tore it again. Then I set the pieces down. "The legal arrangement is done," I said. "Lily's trust is safe. The public investigation is independent. I am no longer your emergency fiancé." Elise's hands were flat on the table. I reached across and touched her fingers. "But I would like to be your real girlfriend, if your emotionally constipated schedule has room." Marin made a noise. Elise looked at my hand on hers, then at me. "Yes," she said. "That fast?" I have been practicing not making every desire sound like a board motion. "Progress. I want you here," she said. "I want your sketches in the library, and Lily insulting my coffee, and you using my fireplace incorrectly. I want to court you properly, if you will allow me, slowly, with no contract, no performance, no debt between us." My throat tightened. "Yes," I said. Marin stood abruptly. "Excellent. I am going to leave before either of you becomes tender in front of me." She grabbed her bag and walked out. The front door closed. Elise and I sat in silence. Then I said, "Court me properly?" Her ears turned pink. I had never seen anything more powerful. "Yes." "Does that include dinner?" "Yes." "Flowers? If you like them." "Hospital coffee?" "Absolutely not." I laughed. Elise smiled. This time, she did not hide it. The first real date happened 2 nights later. Not at a 5-star restaurant. I refused. Elise looked relieved. We went to a tiny Korean place Lily had found online while researching places where rich alphas cannot behave weird because tables are too small. The food was excellent. The table wobbled. Elise wore black but no suit jacket, which counted as vulnerability in her species. Halfway through dinner, she reached across the table and placed a small wrapped package beside my water. I eyed it. "If this is jewelry, I'm leaving." "It is not jewelry." "Property deed?" "No." "Legal document?" I was advised against that. I opened it. Inside was a set of restoration brushes. Not the most expensive kind. The right kind. The ones I had mentioned once, weeks ago, while complaining about bristle shape and pigment lifting. I looked at her. "You listened." "Yes." "That's unfair." "I'm told it is romantic." "It is." The words slipped out before I could soften them. Elise's eyes changed. The restaurant noise blurred around us. After dinner, we walked by the river. Spring wind cut between buildings, smelling like rain and traffic. Elise offered me her arm the way she had at the gala. I took her hand instead. Her fingers closed around mine carefully, as if she still could not believe she was allowed. We stopped on the bridge. Below us, the water moved black and silver. Elise. Yes? Are you going to ask? She looked at me. For permission, I said softly. You've been thinking about kissing me since dessert. Her breath caught. I have. Then ask. She turned fully toward me. Nora Bellamy, she said, with absolute seriousness. May I kiss you? I stepped closer. Yes. The kiss was nothing like I expected from a cold alpha heiress. It was not claiming, not consuming, not a performance for cameras or a consequence of a contract. It was careful at first, because Elise was careful with anything she feared losing. Then I touched the front of her coat and kissed her back, and something in her restraint softened into warmth. When we pulled apart, she looked dazed. I smiled. Legal review face. No. This one is new. I laughed against her shoulder. For the first time in months, nothing urgent happened afterward. No threat. No phone call. No monitor alarm. Just the river, the city, and Elise Wren holding my hand like it was the only inheritance she had ever wanted. A year later, Lily walked across a rehabilitation gym without assistance for the first time. She made everyone promise not to clap. Everyone clapped. She yelled at us for 5 minutes and then cried into my sweater. Elise stood near the wall with both hands clasped tightly in front of her. She looked almost as emotional as she had when Lily once called her Renatha by accident during a medication fog. The physical therapist said Lily was cleared for limited independent walking. Lily said, "Great, I'm escaping." Dr. Patel said, "Slowly." Lily pointed at Elise. "Buy me a dramatic cane." Elise said, "No." Lily said, "You're literally rich. That is not a medical indication." Boring. I watched them argue and felt my heart do something quiet and enormous. That evening, we had dinner at the townhouse. Lily had her own room there now for recovery weekends, decorated with soccer posters, ridiculous pillows, and a framed print of the Wren Conservatory Gala headline because she said it reminded her that rich villains had terrible lighting. Marin came, Dr. Patel came, Joe came and brought cookies shaped like security badges. After dinner, Lily fell asleep on the couch with a blanket over her legs. Marin left first, claiming, "Domestic warmth gives me hives." Elise and I stood in the library after everyone was gone, the fireplace burning inefficiently and beautifully. My sketches were everywhere. Lily's cane catalog, because she had not given up. Elise's reports. A life built in layers over the wreckage of the contract that had started it. Elise stood behind me but did not touch until I leaned back. Then her arms came around my waist. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. I turned my head. "Which part?" "All of it." I thought about the night in her office, the contract, the hospital, Celeste, the gala, the first time Lily opened her eyes, the river, the way love had arrived wearing the face of a woman I had every reason to distrust. "No," I said, "but I hate that I had to meet you because Lily was dying." "So do I. I hate what your family did." "So do I. I hate that money saved her when mercy should have." Elise closed her eyes briefly. "So do I." I turned in her arms. "But I don't regret staying." Her breath caught the way it always did when I said something too direct. Good. I liked surprising the woman who had once looked untouchable. "Elise Wren," I said. "Yes? I love you." For a second, she did not move at all. Then the cold alpha heiress lowered her forehead to mine and broke, quietly, with more grace than anyone had any right to. "I love you too," she whispered. "I have for longer than I knew what to call it. Of course you needed time to define the category." A laugh escaped her. It shook. I kissed her. No contract. No cameras. No debt. Just us in the firelight, choosing what remained after the emergency ended. 6 months after that, Elise proposed. Not at a gala. Not in front of donors. Not with a ring large enough to require structural support. She proposed in Lily's hospital garden, which was not technically a hospital garden anymore because Lily had been discharged for months, but still insisted the place had main character recovery vibes. There were tulips, a bench, spring sun, Lily pretending badly to read a book upside down. Elise got down on one knee with the expression of a woman facing both judgment and joy. I immediately started crying. Lily whispered, "Bad brand." I laughed through tears. Elise opened the small box. The ring was simple. Gold, a small green stone, no spectacle. Inside the band, later, I found 4 words engraved. No debt, just choice. Elise looked up at me. "Nora Bellamy," she said, voice steady only because she had forced it to be. "I once asked for your name when I had no right to ask for anything. You gave it under fear, and I have spent every day since trying to become someone who could be trusted with it freely." My hands covered my mouth. "I do not want 6 months," she said. "I do not want a performance, a contract, or protection mistaken for ownership." Her eyes held mine. "I want mornings, arguments, hospital coffee I will continue to hate, your sketches on every flat surface, Lily threatening my reputation, and whatever future you choose to build with me. Will you marry me?" I looked at Lily. She lowered the upside-down book. "If you say no, I still want brunch." I laughed so hard I almost dropped the ring box. Then I looked at Elise. "Yes," I said. Elise's eyes closed for 1 second. When she stood, she did not kiss me until I pulled her down by the lapels of her very formal coat. Behind us, Lily clapped despite her own rules. The wedding was small. No winter mercy gala, no donors, no foundation board, no photographers hiding in orchids. Just a courthouse room with soft light, Marin holding tissues she claimed belonged to someone else, Dr. Patel crying openly, Joe guarding the door like romance had enemies, and Lily standing beside me in a blue suit with a cane she had absolutely manipulated Elise into buying. Elise wore black. Of course. I wore ivory because Lily said red was for exposing crimes, not weddings. Before the clerk began, Elise leaned close. "Are you sure?" I looked at her. "You are asking me that at the altar?" "Yes." "Still giving me doors?" "Always." I took her hand. "I'm sure." The clerk smiled. The vows were simple. Elise promised not to mistake fear for control, not to let wealth answer questions that required presence, not to ever make my patience into convenience, not to stop learning how to love me in the language I chose. I promised to stop pretending needing help made me smaller, to keep telling her the truth even when it ruined her schedule, to build a life with her that did not erase where we began, but did not stay trapped there either. Lily sniffed loudly. "I'm fine," she said before anyone asked. She was not. Neither was I. When Elise kissed me, it was soft and careful and full of everything we had survived without turning survival into the whole story. Outside, Chicago was bright with late spring. Lily walked between us down the courthouse steps, one arm linked through mine, one through Elise's. "So," she said, "does this mean Elise is legally required to buy me brunch?" Elise looked at me. I looked at Elise. Marin, behind us, said, "Unfortunately, yes." Lily grinned. Elise sighed. "Fine." I laughed. A year and a half earlier, I had walked into Elise Wren's office because my sister was dying, and the world had priced her life higher than I could reach. Elise had asked for my name. For 6 months. In public. I had thought she wanted to own it. But the truth was stranger, harder, and kinder than that. She gave it back to me piece by piece. At the hospital door. In the townhouse room with the brass key. at the gala podium, in the service hallway where she admitted she wanted more than she had any right to ask for, on the bridge, in the library, in the garden, at the altar, and now, standing in the spring light with my sister alive beside me and Elise's hand warm around mine, I finally understood that love was not the price I paid to save Lily. Love was what remained after fear stopped deciding for me. Lily tugged us toward the car. "Brunch," she commanded. Elise leaned closer to me as we walked. "Your sister is terrifying." "Yes," I said. "She's back." Elise's smile softened. "Good." The city moved around us, loud and imperfect and alive. I looked at my wife, then at my sister, then at the bright street ahead. For the first time in years, I was not calculating what I had to sacrifice to keep someone breathing. I was breathing too,